Yeah.
Well, let's talk about how the military entered your life. And I don't know the exact timing on this, but it seems like let's start with, and then you can sort of place us 9/11. So it seems like your life changed quite dramatically around that time. Could you tell us who was Tim Kennedy at that point in time?
Do we have to?
And what then happened starting at 9/11?
All right. Well, I'm just going to just tell you a story.
Yeah.
Mom, if you're listening, please stop. I'm at the pit.
Yeah.
We were Chuck trained out of San Luis Obispo. And I'm training, sweaty, stinky. And this pretty good looking girl walks in. And I was like, hey, girl, what's going on? And she's like, hey, I'm looking for a guy that fought. He was like the 4th or 5th fight that fought a few weekends ago at the WC, the World Extreme Cage Fighting fight on, I think it was like on Halloween. I was like, oh, I fought that night. And she's like, oh, yeah, I remember you. You look familiar. And like, I totally didn't remember her. And she tells me that she tested positive for HIV and that we had a huge orgy that night. And she's trying to contact all of her partners that she's been with in the past few months to have them go get tested that they might have AIDS. That pretty much personifies who I am.
Yeah. At the time.
Yeah. I graduated from high school a few years early, was done with college a couple of years early. Like 18, I'm an EMT firefighter. 19, I already had my undergrad. I start grad school, 9/11 happens. I got 2 girls pregnant, girls walking into I'm in just a talented, wasted piece of shit. Like I'm wasted potential in every single sense of the word. And at the time that all of these things are going wrong and I'm having this realization of, I have to do something. I don't know what that is. A bunch of planes start slamming into buildings, to the Pentagon, into the 2 towers, into some random field in Virginia. And, and I'm just sitting here watching live these things happen and realizing what a waste of a human I am. Like everything was about what jeans am I going to wear? Or, if I'm going to bring a good bottle to some place to impress somebody to, be able to hook up with somebody else. And it was like this horrible, humiliating slap in the face of you're a piece of shit. What are you going to do now?
And then what happens?
So I walk into the recruiter's office and I say, put me on the fastest course I possibly can to the worst place I can go.
All right. So you do that. What do the people around you think of that decision?
My mom was scared. My dad was proud. My brother was excited. All of my friends were just like me, so interested in themselves that it didn't matter what I was going to be doing.
Right. They were too self-absorbed.
Yeah.
To really have that much interest.
Yeah. My dad, he wasn't proud yet. He was exhilarated in the sense that I had a chance. Mm-hmm.
In a way, you'd been given a second chance.
Yeah.
Like a reboot opportunity.
In this case, it was probably my 50th chance.
Yeah.
I came, white privilege is a thing, and I had every opportunity to succeed in anything I did. I was top 10 in the world when I was 22 years old as a fighter, 21 as a fighter. Anything, I could have done anything. And I was just wasting everything. So then at this point, it was my dad finally be like, okay, we got another chance, let's see how this goes.
So if you could walk us through sort of what happens in the weeks and months after that, because I have friends who are both active and at this point certainly now more so on the civilian side from military, but I've never experienced it myself.
Yeah.
So what happens from that point forward?
So to get to special forces, there's a lot of tests, from intelligence chat tests, your ASVAB, your GT test.
What are those?
It's your general technical knowledge. So there's high IQ people who can do amazing things on questionnaires, and then if you hand them a puzzle, they kind of look at it like, or if you hand them a transmission,
right,
and you say, break this transmission down and put it back together. That's just a different type of mind.
Sure.
special forces, they want smart guys that are physically capable, that have a very, very high acumen in general technical ability. So there's some tests that when you take the ASVAB, which is kind of the general military intelligence test, that has subcategories, that one of which is your GT score, your general technical knowledge. So make sure your scores are good. You have the proficiency to learn a second language quickly, or you already have a second language, which is required in all special forces. And then you go to basic training as an infantryman. If you finish basic training, you go to airborne school. You finish basic training, infantry school, and airborne school. Then you go to special operations preparation course. And this is the attritor. This is the opportunity for the special forces to get rid of you. This is it's run by senior special forces NCOs, and it's their first access to the fresh population of potential candidates that are going to go to selection. If you don't pass SOP-C, then you don't get to go to selection. If you don't go to selection, then you go to the needs of the Army. You can go back to being infantry, or you could go to EOD, or you could do anything else. You just can't be a Green Beret.
What does EOD stand for? What is it? Yeah.
It's getting rid of bombs, explosive ordnance disposal. Guys would go to psychological operations, civil affairs, just kind of any other kind of high-speed, cool job, but you're just never going to be special forces. I think we got there in April, and they froze guys going to selection in May, June, July, and August because it was too hot, and a bunch of Green Berets keep dying in selection. Well, pre-Green Berets. So they wouldn't let us go. So they had us for 4 or 5 months of all of these recruits coming in. And the 500 of us, they sent 91 of us to selection. Everybody else went away.
Washed out a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of the 91 of us, 88 of us got selected, and then went to... When you get selected, that just means you get to go to the Q course, which is somewhere between a year to 2 years of training to show up on the team and then realize that you know nothing and that you're a piece of shit and that you have everything to learn the day that you walk through the door.
So when you got into, say, the Q course, what were you best at and what were you worst at? Where did you excel and where were you deficient the most, if you remember?
They love the gray guy. Like they always say, be the gray man, be the guy. There's 200 people in formation. Be the guy that nobody knows the name of.
Yeah.
Which means, like, if you're going to run a PT test, there's the guy that goes the fastest and the guy that goes the slowest. You want to be the guy that just passes, that nobody knows about.
Why is that?
Like, being so unremarkable is especially in special operations, it's a trait that's really hard to find. That
is that for blending in later, for being inconspicuous later? Or
yeah, and also, we don't want showboaters.
Right.
You can go to the Navy SEALs. And we don't want failures.
Yeah.
You can go to the Air Force. So we want that sweet middle ground. We want the gray man that can do anything, that will always pass, and you forget about the moment you take your eyes off him.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm looking right at you, but where'd you go, man? I know you're right there.
Right.
Like, you cross the finish line, you're like, all right, great job. What was that dude's name again?
Right.
That's the guy that we want. Because that guy's priceless.
So were you that guy?
I was not that guy. I was the guy that would finish first.
Yeah.
I was the guy that was...
biceps the size of my chest, probably.
Yeah. And competitive shooter, a professional fighter. Like, they knew who I was. Right. So it took a lot of practice and training and pain to kind of get the gray man mentality. Mm-hmm. I want everybody like, oh, look at Tim. You're like, great. Look at that, guys. Be like Tim. But that's just not how it is in that culture.
So how do they beat that out of you, or how do they
beat that? Like you said it.
Yeah.
They beat it out of you. So if you're in SEER school, you're talking about being a gray man.
Yeah.
Like if you're the tallest,
what is that? That's help me out.
Survival, evasion, resistance, escape.
Mm-hmm.
It's a month-long torture school where. You want to be the gray man. If you're not the gray man, you are being beat. You are being beaten.
Yeah.
Like phone books, hoses, starvation, cold water, locked inside of cages, locked inside of boxes that you can't take a full breath in, locked inside of a box that you can't stand up in, that you can't stretch in, being pissed on, getting put in a pond that's frozen and making you squat so your tiny little dick and the balls, which are essentially up inside of your stomach, are barely touching and breaking the ice. And you have to stand there in that half squat with the water just playing with what's left of your, tiny penis. And with somebody making fun of you while you're doing it.
Right.
You're like, oh, look at his little dick, and like, why are you taller than I am tall? Oh, and then they bit you again. So they beat it out of you.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll get good at it. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of how to segue here.
Mental toughness.
Now,
It can be